All right, today we're tackling one of the biggest evolutions in the entire blockchain space, interoperability. It's basically the magic key that's turning all these isolated digital islands into one single connected universe.
So let's start with a really simple idea to frame this. Just imagine for a second if your email could only reach people who use the exact same provider as you. Like Gmail could only talk to Gmail, Yahoo to Yahoo. It'd be chaos, right? I mean, the whole point of email would just vanish. Well, believe it or not, for the longest time, that's exactly what the blockchain world looked like. Bitcoin had no way to talk to Ethereum. Ethereum couldn't communicate with Solana. Each one was this incredibly powerful system, but totally walled off from the others. They were silo.
Okay, so let's get into our first section here and really unpack this problem. Why on earth were all these incredible technologies built as, separate islands instead of one big, connected continent from the get-go?
So you've got two pictures here, really. On one side, you have the problem, these siloed chains. There's like digital islands where value and data just get stuck, It really stifles innovation. But on the other side, that's the vision, an interconnected ecosystem, a single unified digital economy where everything, assets, data, you name it, can just flow freely. And bridging that huge gap, well, that's what this is all about.
And this right here, this is the core of the why. It's not like they're just slightly incompatible. No. Each blockchain is fundamentally built from the ground up in a different way. Think of it like a unique digital DNA. They have their own data structures, their own transaction formats, and their own consensus mechanisms, which is just a fancy way of saying their own set of rules for agreeing on what's true. They are, quite literally, speaking different languages.
So the big question is, how do you solve that? If you've got a world full of isolated islands, well, you've got to start building some digital airports, right? You need infrastructure to connect them all. And that big solution, that infrastructure, it has a name, blockchain interoperability. At its heart, it's really just the ability for all these different networks to finally talk to each other, to seamlessly exchange data, send messages, move assets around, almost like they were all part of one giant single system. This is the key. This is what unlocks the entire potential of the ecosystem. And to make this super simple, let's just ditch all the technical jargon for a second. Let's think about it with an analogy that makes it all click. Yeah, think of each blockchain as its own country. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Each one has its own unique language, its communication rules, it has its own currency, its native token, and it has its own set of laws. That's its consensus mechanism. You can't just show up in France and try to spend US dollars everywhere, or expect everyone to understand your local dialect. You need systems in place to make it work.
And that's exactly what interoperability is. It's the international airport, it's the currency exchange, it's the universal translator. It's all that crucial infrastructure that lets these digital countries finally trade with each other, communicate, and build things together.
Okay, but why go to all this trouble? Why is building all these digital airports and translators such a big deal? What's the real payoff here? What are the powerful benefits of a truly connected Web3? Well, the benefits are, honestly, they're huge. You can see here the number one reason taking up a big 35% chunk is unifying liquidity. And that's basically just pooling all the money trapped on these different islands into one big ocean. But it doesn't stop there. It also means we can build way better dApps, the user experience gets a massive upgrade, and the whole system becomes way more scalable. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It's like linking a bunch of small, separate rivers into one powerful ocean. Instead of having these tiny little puddles of money scattered all over the place, you connect them. You create this massive, deep ocean of liquidity. And that just makes everything more efficient, more powerful, and better for everybody involved. All right, now for the really cool part. Let's get under the hood a little. How do blockchains actually talk to each other? Let's take a look at the bridges and protocols that make this all happen. So one of the most common ways to do this is with something called a lock and mint bridge. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. First, you take an asset, let's say 1 ETH, and you deposit it into a special smart contract on its home chain, Ethereum. That original asset then gets locked up. Step 3, the bridge mints a brand new, wrapped version of that ETH on a different chain, let's say Solana. So now you can use that wrapped ETH over on Solana to do whatever you want. It's kind of like a digital IOU system. Your original is safe, but you have a copy to spend somewhere else. But, and this is a huge but,
there's a massive risk here. Because these bridges have to lock up all those original assets, they basically become giant treasure chests, just sitting there, waiting to be hacked. And they have been hacked. We're talking about $2.5 billion with a B. That's the amount that's been lost from cross-chain bridge hacks alone. It's an absolutely immense security risk.
So to deal with that insane security problem, we're seeing these really powerful new protocols pop up. And what's cool is they all tackle the problem a little differently. You've got IBC in the Cosmos world, which is all about being as secure and decentralized as possible. Then there's Polkadot's XCMP, which has this really clever shared security model. And then you have these multi-chain solutions like LayerZero and CCIP, which act more like universal translators, using things like decentralized oracles to connect pretty much any chain to any other chain. They're all building a safer way to connect. So with this new, much more secure foundation being built, let's zoom out. Let's look at what's next. What does the unified blockchain future actually look like? We're really seeing a rapid evolution here. Wave 1 was pretty simple, just moving tokens back and forth with those early bridges. Right now, we're kind of in Wave 2, enabling cross-chain smart contracts. But the future is where it gets really wild. Wave 3 is all about zero-knowledge interoperability, or ZK. That's super advanced cryptography that allows for truly trustless communication. And then you look out to Wave 4, and we're talking about AI-optimized routing. Imagine an AI just automatically finding the cheapest, fastest, and safest path for your transaction across dozens of chains. So, what does all this mean for you, the user? Well, we're heading toward a future where all of this complexity just disappears. You won't have to think about trustless bridges or ZK proofs. You won't even know which chain you're on. The whole experience is just going to be so seamless. You'll use an app, and behind the scenes, it might be tapping into 3, 4, 5 different blockchains, but to you, it'll just work. Because that's the real vision here. The end game isn't just to connect a few blockchains, it's to transform all of these isolated systems into what is effectively a single global decentralized computer. And that really leaves us with a final massive question to think about. The internet completely changed the world by eliminating the barriers to communication. So what new barriers will interoperable blockchains eliminate for value and for ownership? What happens when moving and owning and programming value becomes as easy as sending an email? That's the truly transformative future that's being built as we speak.